The hospital lights flickered as Ethan Cole, a tired single father working the overnight janitor shift, pushed his cleaning cart down the silent hallway. His eyes were heavy, his steps slow, carrying the weight of too many sleepless nights and too many responsibilities for one man alone. A billionaire's private security team swept past him without even noticing he existed, tightening the perimeter for the powerful man visiting the hospital that night. Ethan kept his head down, unaware that the secret he fought to hide was about to collide with the richest man in the city. Ethan wiped his hands on his worn-out pants as he stepped into the dimly lit supply room, closing the door softly behind him. The chaos of the hospital faded into a muffled hum, leaving him in a quiet pocket of stillness. He leaned against the shelves and let out a long, exhausted breath. His back ached from hours of scrubbing floors, pushing heavy equipment, and lifting bags bigger than anyone should handle alone. But pain wasn't new to him. Neither was exhaustion. What he carried inside was heavier than anything physical. A soft vibration buzzed in his pocket. He knew exactly what it meant. He pulled out his old phone. The screen cracked, the battery nearly dead, but the notification glowing bright. Your fundraising deadline is in 24 hours. His throat tightened. He had tried everything. Long shifts, extra hours, double jobs. But no matter how much he worked, he couldn't reach the amount he needed. Because the secret he carried wasn't something dark or shameful. It was something precious, fragile, fighting for life. His son, Leo, just 8 years old, brilliant, kind, too wise for his age, and suffering from a rare condition that insurance refused to fully cover. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing his thoughts to settle. Tonight wasn't about fear. Tonight was about survival. He reached under the shelf and pulled out a small metal lunchbox. Inside wasn't food. It was paperwork, medical bills, pharmacy receipts, lab results, and the dreaded estimate for the surgery Leo desperately needed. Ethan stared at the number for the 1,000th time. Even if he worked every hour of every day, it wouldn't be enough. He felt his chest tighten. Hang in there, buddy, he whispered. I'm not giving up on you. He tucked the papers back inside just as a soft cough interrupted the silence. Ethan jumped slightly and turned around. A young woman in scrubs stood in the doorway, apologizing quickly. Sorry, I didn't know anyone was in here. Her name tag read Claire Rivers, a night shift nurse known for her kindness, a fierce protective nature over her patients. She stepped inside gently. You okay, Ethan? You look pale. He forced a tired smile. Just a long night. She studied him, clearly unconvinced. You've had too many of those. But before he could respond, the hospital speakers crackled overhead with an announcement. Attention staff. Mr. Victor Hale has arrived. All security zones active. Ethan stiffened. Victor Hale, the billionaire, the man who owned half the city, the man whose fortune was plastered across magazines. He had come to the hospital for a private matter, something the staff was forbidden to ask about. Claire rolled her eyes. Great. More suits running. Brown. But Ethan didn't hear her. His mind drifted to the fundraising campaign he had started anonymously online. The one nobody knew belonged to him. The one that told the story of a child who deserved a chance. A child Ethan would die for. He looked at Claire again, her eyes warm and worried. I'll be okay, he whispered. A lie. He stepped out of the supply room and resumed pushing his cart, unaware that the billionaire walking through the hospital halls that night was about to discover his secret in a way neither of them could have predicted. Ethan continued down the hallway, his hands gripping the cleaning cart as if it were the only thing holding him upright. The hospital felt different tonight, buzzing with tension, with whispers, with security guards blocking off entire sections. Billionaire visits always changed the atmosphere. Staff stiffened, patients were moved, protocols tightened. But to Ethan, it only meant more work, more pressure, and more chances to be invisible in a world where people like Victor Hale never looked twice at men like him. As he scrubbed a stain off the floor near the elevator, a group of men in suits stepped out, scanning the hallway like hawks. Their polished shoes clicked sharply against the tiles. One of them spoke into a radio. VIP is moving to radiology. Secure the route. Ethan kept his head low, stepping aside. The last thing he needed was trouble, especially tonight. Then, unexpectedly, one of the elevator doors opened again. At this time, it wasn't security who stepped out. It was Victor Hale himself, tall, impeccably dressed, with eyes that carried both intensity and exhaustion. The billionaire looked nothing like the powerful titan shown in magazines. Tonight he looked human, tired, worried, holding something close to his chest, documents, maybe scans. Maybe answers he didn't want. Ethan froze. For a moment, their eyes met. Hale looked at him, not past him, not through him, but at him. It was strange, but the moment passed quickly. Hale turned and walked away, surrounded by guards. Ethan exhaled, not realizing he had been holding his breath. He continued working until a familiar voice startled him from behind. "Daddy!" Ethan spun around and saw Leo, still in his pajamas, standing in the hallway with the nurse guiding him gently. His face was pale, his small hands trembling slightly. Ethan rushed to him. "Leo, what are you doing out of bed?" His voice cracked with panic. The nurse apologized softly. "He woke up asking for you, said he felt dizzy." Leo leaned into Ethan's side. Breathing shakily, Ethan lifted him into his arms, feeling how light he had become. Delight. The disease was stealing strength from his son day by day. As Ethan carried him back to his room, Leo whispered, "I didn't want to be alone." Ethan kissed his forehead. "You'll never be alone, I promise." But as he laid him down gently, Leo winced, pain shooting through him like electricity. It was subtle, but enough to tear Ethan open inside. He sat beside him, brushing hair from his forehead. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, even though he had no idea how to make it true. When Leo finally fell asleep, Ethan stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, gripping his chest as the weight of everything crashed over him. His fundraising page, the deadline, the surgery he could never afford. He felt powerless, destroyed, and utterly alone until a voice behind him spoke. "Is he your son?" Ethan turned sharply. Standing a few feet away was Victor Hale, alone for the first time since arriving. No security, no entourage, just a man with tired eyes watching him carefully. Ethan swallowed. "Yes," he said quietly. "His name is Leo." Hale stepped closer, his gaze shifting to the room where Leo slept. "I saw him earlier. He looked like a strong kid." Ethan nodded weakly. "Stronger than me." There was a pause, a deep, heavy silence shared between two men who looked like they came from opposite worlds, yet were both holding something fragile inside. Hale spoke again. "What's wrong with him?" Ethan hesitated. He never told anyone. He hated being pitied, but something in Hale's voice, soft, genuine, made the walls around him crack. "He needs surgery," Ethan finally whispered. "A very expensive one." Hale studied him. "At your working nights, because of that?" Ethan nodded. Hale's expression changed completely. For the first time, Ethan saw not the billionaire from the magazines, but a father, a man who understood fear, pain, desperation. Hale took a slow breath and said words that made Ethan's heart stop. "I saw something earlier, something with your name on it." Ethan stiffened. "What do you mean?" Hale met his eyes. "Your secret isn't as hidden as you think." Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. He wasn't sure if he had heard Victor Hale correctly. His mind raced through every possible meaning: fear, confusion, suspicion, everything tangled together in one overwhelming knot. Hale took a cautious step closer, lowering his voice like a man who understood the weight of secrets. "I was shown something tonight," Hale said quietly. "A list of the hospital's emergency charity requests, anonymous cases, families asking for help." He paused before adding, "One of those cases was yours." Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him. He thought his fundraising page was hidden. He thought no one would ever know it belonged to him. Shame and vulnerability washed over him at once. "I didn't want anyone to know," Ethan whispered, eyes burning. "I didn't want pity. I just want my son to live." Hale's expression softened with something Ethan didn't recognize at first: respect. "You're a good father," Hale said. "I could see it the moment you picked him up in the hallway." He looked toward Leo's room, his jaw tightening. "And I know what it feels like to watch someone you love slowly slip away, while you stand there powerless." Ethan frowned. You've been through that?" Hale nodded, his eyes drifting away as if looking into a distant memory. "My daughter," he whispered, 5 years old. He swallowed, voice trembling despite his effort to steady it. "We tried everything, every doctor, every treatment, every miracle money could buy. But sometimes, life doesn't care how rich you are." He breathed in shakily. "I lost her, and it broke me." Ethan felt the weight of Hale's grief like a quiet storm settling between them. To fathers from completely different worlds, bound by the same fear, the same pain, the same love. Hale turned back to Ethan, determination building in his gaze. "No father should lose a child because of money," he said. "Not again. Not on my watch." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "I'm not asking. I know you're not." Hale interrupted gently. "That's why I want to help." Ethan blinked in confusion. Help? How? Hale reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. He handed it to Ethan with steady hands. I already spoke with the hospital director, Hale said. Leo's surgery is approved. Fully covered. No fees. No debt. He'll be on the operating table first thing in the morning. Ethan stared at the paper, unable to process the words. For a moment, everything around him blurred. His vision, his breath, the hallway all swallowed by shock. What? Ethan whispered. Why would you do this for me? Hale's voice softened. Because if someone had done this for me, my daughter might still be alive. He took a slow breath. And because I saw you working all night, exhausted, hurting, but still fighting. You're the kind of father who deserves a miracle. Emotion struck Ethan like a tidal wave. His legs weakened, and he leaned against the wall for support. Tears blurred his sight. Thank you, he choked out. I don't know how to. You don't owe me anything, Hale said firmly. Just take care of your son. A silence settled deep, warm, powerful, the kind of silence that only exists when something sacred has just happened. The next morning, Ethan held Leo's hand as nurses prepared him for surgery. The little boy smiled weakly up at him. Daddy, am I going to get better? Ethan kissed his forehead. Yes, buddy, you are. Someone helped us. Leo nodded sleepily. I knew you'd fix it. Ethan felt tears welling. Again, I never gave up on you, he whispered. Hours later, the surgeon emerged from the operating room with a tired but triumphant smile. The surgery was a success, she said. Your son is going to make it. Ethan broke down in relief, covering his mouth as he cried into his hands. Hale, who had been waiting nearby, placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Ethan looked up, tears streaming, and managed a shaky smile. You saved him, Ethan whispered. Hale shook his head softly. No, you saved him the moment you refused to quit. As Leo recovered, Hale visited often. Their bond grew not as billionaire and janitor, but as to fathers united by loss, hope, and compassion. And when Leo finally walked out of the hospital doors weeks later, holding both their hands, Ethan realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest miracles come from the people we never expect, and sometimes the secrets we try to hide are the ones that save us.